Welcome everybody. You made it. Last session of the day. We're talking about sleep and security awareness and cyber performance. So I'll try not to put you to sleep with this last one here. My name is Eliot Baker. I work for a company called Hoxhunt. We are headquartered out of Helsinki in Finland. I'm actually originally from the Seattle area myself, but I've been living in Finland for 15 years. So as you can probably imagine, I just got off the plane yesterday, so feeling a little bit sleepy right now. So, not sure if you guys knew this, but research out of Harvard back about 20 years ago showed that sleep deprivation can be equivalent to about 4 drinks of alcohol in terms of your performance. Did you also know that on international flights, gin and tonics are free? So let's hope this is not an additive thing, or else this is going to be a pretty wild performance here. So we're going to go through this, and here we are talking about sleep and security awareness. What's the, even possible tie with that? Is there anybody here who manages the security awareness program? A little bit? Okay. Is there anybody here who uses a sleep tracker, who sleep tracks their watch? A couple people here. Okay, cool. So that brings up part of my background too. So before I got into cybersecurity, I was in sleep tech. I was with a company called Beddit, also out of Finland, and a lot of our technology is integrated into SleepWatch now because we got acquired by Apple in 2017. And in a previous lifetime, I was a sleep research assistant at Harvard Medical School. I thought at the time I would become a scientist, but decided not to, did other stuff instead. So we're going to go through the tie with this thing, and it's kind of a funny topic. And cyber performance is not something you're going to really find. It's more of something that's kind of in my own mind I've been thinking about for a long time, because what I saw from the revolution in sleep technology and in wearable technology, that sounds a lot better. There are actually some ties to what I'm kind of seeing right now with security awareness as it becomes more cool. We just had a conversation over here a little bit where people are actually talking about cybersecurity. I'm not sure if anybody watched the recent Netflix show 0 Day with Robert De Niro or Mr. Robot. Like slowly, the whole idea of like phishing and social engineering is making its way into kind of the popular conscious, and that happened years ago with sleep. And now I think we sort of take it for granted as people like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant were talking about sleeping in sleep chambers to improve their performance. Ariana Huffington was writing books about sleep as being integral for work productivity. Bill Gates at one point in 2019 highlighted Matthew Walker's book. It's an excellent book, Why We Sleep, in 2019 as one of his top 5 books of the year, and said that he regrets the hustle culture he was in for always just sort of like avoiding or neglecting his sleep to be more productive, when actually that was kind of not a productive way to go about it. And with security awareness, I think there are some really interesting ties that to that evolution of sleep that you can really see through the connective tissue of performance. So, slide. So that's a lot of words up there, but one of the things that when we think about performance, I think probably a lot of us are thinking about it in terms of athletic performance. Some people might be thinking about it in terms of work productivity, and that's for sure true. But one of the really interesting definitions of performance I've come across is in high reliability organizations, such as those that do non-destructive testing in aviation, oil and gas pipelines, those types of things, because they are looking at performance in terms of the interaction between people and their environment. And when that environment is very high risk, the performance becomes very important. Are people making mistakes that can actually cost as much as loss of life or just severe problems to your business? And in cybersecurity, particularly when we're looking at what is the biggest risk of something causing a cyber breach, is phishing and social engineering. And all that is that someone clicked the wrong thing. It can be as simple as that. You do one wrong click, and all of a sudden your operational technology is no longer operational for a while. All of a sudden you have ransomware. So when you look at people and how they are the largest attack surface, you want to make sure that they are performing at a very high level. Okay? So a little storytelling here now for my own background. So back when, I'm going to change this a little bit up here. So back when I used to work in the sleep lab, we used to do what's called a polysomnography setup, PSG setup, and that was 22 wires glued all over your body, attached to 12 different channels. We were measuring your heart rate, your blood pressure. Sleep occurs in the brain, so we're measuring your brain waves. We're measuring core temperature via a rectal temperature probe, the things we do for science. We were doing all of that, and in the study I was involved with, we kept people awake for 72 hours, and throughout those 72 hours, we would draw their blood. We'd monitor that for cortisol changes, for C-reactive protein changes, and what we discovered, and this was amazing, 72 hours of not sleeping is bad. Mind-blowing. I mean, the top minds in the field found this out. So, and so this was part of a mountain of research that showed this, is that if you have sleep deprivation, if you don't sleep well, it's bad. There's an increased likelihood of Alzheimer's and dementia. There's an increased likelihood of heart attack and stroke. There's poor performance. It's bad, 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 bad. And that was being broadcast by loads of evidence, loads of things. And guess what changed? Absolutely nothing. Like, you can tell people that you'd have to eat your vegetables. You tell people that you should be healthy. But trying to scare people into changing their behavior just doesn't work. And that's grounded in behavioral science. It just doesn't happen. Or if you're trying to really freak people out with, if you fail a phishing simulation, then you're going to get fired. Or all these cybersecurity threats are out there and they're super scary, so you have to behave well because they're scary. A lot of security awareness training to this day still operates on that principle, and a lot of security awareness training just doesn't really move the needle. Those of you who are involved with it will probably see that, is that even if you're doing pretty well, it's, maybe you have 10% engagement, maybe 20 if you're doing really well. Maybe you have some measurable behavior change happening, some measurable risk reduction, but it's still kind of hard to get out of certain plateaus and ruts. So then back to sleep, what happened was then I got into the sleep tech world later on. One thing led to another. I went up in Finland, and I met these wild-eyed founders. And they took this really cool technology, and they applied that to this really cool new thing called a smartphone. And what we found was that we could actually measure at home people's blood pressure, heart rate, respiration, whole body movement, and their breathing and even their snoring through the phone. So what we were able to do is take the lab quality sleep measurements and do it from home without a rectal temperature probe also. So that was a deal breaker for a lot of consumers apparently. That changed everything. That became a real thing. As a lot of people raised their hands just now, that you actually track your exercise and you track your sleep at home because it is so easy. And why not? It became something that people talk about too. We regularly discuss how your sleep is actually completely linked to your performance. And so that was the big change at that time, is that the messaging became more about sleep as a key pillar for performance, and that there was technology that was available that you could actually measure it and measure the right things. And the right things being heart rate, breathing, snoring, and whole body movement as reflections of the central nervous system on the autonomic nervous system, because if you want to go into the brain, you have to glue stuff on your head. And there was one actually really cool piece of tech that did that, but no one used it because it was just, you had something on your head. So it wasn't very fun to sleep with that. And in the end, you had all these influencers, all these very celebrities talking about sleep in a completely different way. And that created this upswell of people who suddenly wanted to get into sleep tracking. Okay, so next slide. So the sleep to the performance to the paradigm shift is what I was describing there, and you can see it all around you nowadays. Around this time when we were in the sleep tracking world, we suddenly found that we were working with HR programs or organizations who wanted to incorporate sleep into their wellness programs because it was good for productivity. It was good for performance. There was also athletic training. We used to work with different professional sports teams. That was an obvious application for it. Different people would buy the sleep tracking devices. Some funny stories about that, but I won't get into it right now. Maybe later on. School schedules eventually began to change when they started realizing that having kids at a young age going to school at 7 o'clock in the morning was actually bad for their school performance. So they started pushing back school hours from that. Even daylight savings time, it's has problems with sleep. So even that has been kind of changed a little bit by the mountain of evidence about sleep being important, and you don't want to damage your sleep at all. Mental health initiatives, occupational health and safety, you see that now all the time. For instance, the military, they started seeing that most of the different problems with friendly fire accidents, many problems with operating equipment in the military, a lot of the accidents there were very often linked to fatigue, so they started having readiness parameters around people, as much as they could, around people who go out in the field. So the change of that messaging that involved looking at the right metrics, the right things to track, and the right messaging around performance, we see it all around us now, and it wasn't that long ago that this started to happen. Okay, next one. So now we're going to get into the whole idea of the cybersecurity application of this about security awareness and phishing training. So in performance, it's more than one metric. And right now, typically, we're going to be looking in a security awareness program. We're usually going to be just measuring the click rate. So you send someone a phishing simulation, they fail it, and that's mostly what you're going to be following, is just that. So in sleep, it finally became apparent that what we were looking for were these types of things to show their recovery and that they were going to be ready to perform well. And in cyber, what you can do is you can look at, there's one behavior based upon your largest risk that you can really try to center on, and that's reporting a threat. So the ideal outcome of a phishing attack, whatever its form, whether it's phishing through voice, whether it's phishing through Teams, Slack, email, whatever it is, the best thing that you can really have happen from that is a threat report, because that's going to scurry a response, and it's going to accelerate some kind of a response to remove the danger from the system or to limit its spread. So once you start looking purely at sleep in terms of behavior, once you start looking, I'm getting a little sleepy over here. Once you start looking at this in terms of performance with security awareness, it becomes behavior. And the key behavior here being threat reporting, what you're trying to look for is the reporting rate, the miss rate, and then the click rate. And like any performance, you're also looking at speed. Speed is essential in security. The faster you can get to some kind of an incident, the less damage it can cause. And ultimately, the ultimate killer victory here, in performance, you're looking at things in terms of wins and losses. You're looking at things in terms of your big stats. The big victory here is a real threat detected and being able to monitor that. How many people actually caught a malicious message and reported it? Okay, next one. So here we are again. We're in a world where we're thinking about things in terms of not such a negative thing. We're thinking about terms in positive terms. And the way that you can look at that is if you sleep more and you thrive. That was Cheryl Ma out of Stanford. Her research on basketball players at Stanford in the early 2000s were that they were 5% faster and 9% more accurate shooters. And then NASA research showed that a nap improves performance by 34% and alertness by 54%. And there are just loads and loads and loads of research around this now. Like in sports world alone, the actual betting lines changed about 15 years ago. That became a thing where they were monitoring which team was actually traveling and therefore likely not to be performing at their peak awake hours. And that actually changed the line of a sport contest as much as a home or away, as much as any kind of another kind of advantage that might happen with a sport contest. So you look at it in terms of performance, it becomes something that you can actually see the difference as opposed to just be afraid of not doing. You actually look forward to doing something because you're going to get some kind of a result, some kind of an outcome. With cybersecurity, you can actually get a 10x rise in real threat reporting if you start teaching people how to report a threat and rewarding them for that. Okay, next one. And this is what the old negative type stuff used to look like. You know, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of more stats like that about how not sleeping gives you problems. Oh, and by the way, this is kind of a neat thing that we found too at Hoxhunt. If you are on your devices either very, very early or very, very late, and you're 4 to 8 times more likely to click on a malicious link. Okay. So treat security like a high-performance sport, and then you got game on. So you want practice, a repeatable behavior that will instill the organization-wide cyber habits and embed a security mindset into business culture. So practice, most people would probably look at the traditional model being either yearly security awareness training and maybe a quarterly phishing exercise or something like that. Some people might go up to maybe even once a month. We found that you can have 36 a year if they're short and if they're interesting enough. So it's that repeated practice that gets you better and better at doing something. You want to be able to measure that. You want to be able to track it correctly. And you want to motivate people. You can't expect people to change their behavior and to improve their performance by scaring them with the stick. Using the carrot works a lot better. Different ways to do it. It could be awesome content. It could be great videos. I think Ninjio has really neat videos. There's other approaches to it. The one that I happen to work with mostly is gamification. It's working with people pressing something, doing a behavior, and then immediately being rewarded for that behavior. Okay. So now we're looking at the stats, and this is kind of what it comes down to. This is why security awareness exists, and we're all probably pretty familiar with these types of stats. The Verizon DBIR put it last year at 68% of breaches contained the human element. That was a little funny because it would have been the same as the year previous, which is 74%, but they changed their criteria. And I'm looking forward to it this year. The DBR is coming out next week, and research that my team did is going to be in the Verizon DBIR. So I'm kind of excited to see how that's going to translate, because it'll look at actually separating security awareness training from security behavior change. Comcast Business Report, 80 to 95% of cyber attacks begin with a phish. $4.88 million is the average cost of a phishing breach. And there has been a 4,151% increase in phishing attacks since ChatGPT in November 22, according to /Next. So a lot of scary stuff, and I think that that's kind of why a lot of people who are in charge of securing the human element, they go for a punishment and a consequence-based approach, is because there is so much at stake. And there's a real concern about something happening, and you didn't scare people enough to prevent them from doing that something, whatever it is. Okay, next one. So this is what performance looks like, and this is our data here. This is based on 2.5 million global users, all around the world too. And so what will usually happen is that the global baseline for a fail rate, meaning you fail a phishing simulation that was sent to you, miss rate, meaning you just neglected to interact with it, or the reporting rate, where you actually report the simulation, is going to be somewhere around 7%, 10% of the reporting rate. And then real threats that are reported per user per year is usually almost negligible, not tracked, or it's very small. So post-enrollment, once people, oh, I'm sorry. Just dropped the microphone here. Post-enrollment, what happens is that once people learn how to interact with a button, a simple button that you can press and get rewarded for pressing it in some way, is that this immediately shoots up. The fail rate goes down, and it's a result of behavior, as a result of people actually doing something repeatedly that reinforces a behavior that you're trying to coach them to do. And over time, if you see the way that happens here, it's really cool. It goes from being the undesired behavior, which is clicking, was actually higher than desired behavior reporting in the very beginning. And eventually, there's actually an inversion of your misses and of your successes, while failure rate stays at a very nice, stable level, even over months and years of interacting with this program. And on the blue histogram, you see how the real threats detected continually go up over time. Okay, next one. And the cool thing is that what you see is that you get this incredibly robust data where you can look at people by their job role, you get to see people by their geography, you can find people within your own organization who is actually risky at this point, because people are interacting with something so much that you have a completely different level of data around your risk profiles of individuals and of groups. And this is pretty common. Usually all us people in sales, communications, and marketing are not like the most awesome performers. Other people, for us, it was legal and finance typically does really well. IT does really well. IT can kind of cheat though. Everyone here in IT, you can kind of just sort of do some rules on your email, and then it'll actually cache the simulations when they come in, so you don't even have to interact with it, but not judging though. Okay, next one. So the pillars of cyber performance, this comes down to what you're looking for are, you got to find your key behaviors, you have to find the key metrics to track those behaviors, and then you need to be able to adopt technology. And the technology piece is really exciting these days. And we'll get to that a little bit more too in the next slide or two. But the key behaviors I've already described here being, start with reporting. And there's much more than just social engineering in terms of cyber performance. But social engineering and being able to report a social engineering attack, it's a really nice, neat behavior. It's not trivial technically to like integrate the right button into your program, into your platform, into your email gateway, and be able to track all the people who are clicking it or not clicking it. But the actual behavior itself is very simple. It's really quite straightforward. Once you get beyond that, then you're talking about the term, it's become popular ever since Forrester in August came out with their first Forrester Wave report on human risk management. And human risk management, it has kind of a negative connotation to me. People call it insider risk, people call it human risk, anything with risk with people. But that's the term that we're using right now. But that involves the gamut of behaviors that people have online. And MFA use, patching and updating, safe web browsing, information sharing and storing, all that stuff. And that you can track also. It's a little bit less behavior focused and reward based when you're tracking those behaviors. And meaningful metrics as we described. So technology with AI, this is where it gets really neat, because one of the problems with typical security awareness programs is that it's mostly very manual and it's going to be not terribly dynamic. So it's very hard to, if you have a smaller company, if you have a smaller group of people of like, let's say 10 to 100 people, you kind of know who needs what type of training and on what. And you can separate the different people from the different departments and give them department-specific type training, background-specific training. But when you have a group of 500, 5,000, 50,000, 200,000 people, it gets really hard. It's a big lift trying to develop training that's dynamic with those people and dynamic with the threat landscape as well. So with AI, it gives you the opportunity now to do all the heavy operational lifting, which is nice, but what's crucial is that it also, with AI, you can kind of be a social engineer with your own people. You can get very advanced training based on the same types of stuff that we're afraid of that social engineers are doing to us, where they're using OSINT data and they're automatically sending targeted attacks at people. And we can do the same thing by sending targeted training at people based upon their skills and their background. So as we said earlier, one of the ways that you do want to get people motivated to engage with training is make it fun. And one of the ways that I just happen to have seen work is making it gamified. There's a whole behavioral science principle behind why gamification works. Yu-Kai Chow wrote this out in his gamification principles years ago. But you get people to engage with a mundane task with the same kind of enthusiasm and engagement as they would with a game. And it comes down to, it's not as simple as just stars and badges. I know that a lot of people think of gamification just sort of being that. There's a lot more to it than that. But this is something that works, and people will actually look forward to a fishing simulation, and they'll actually be mad if they miss one because they might get a lower ranking on the leaderboards or whatnot. And from that, you can also message cybersecurity as a core wellness benefit. This is not so common, but I've talked to some companies that do a really cool thing where they actually work with their HR department, and they started to look at, and HR professionals, 20 years ago, that was kind of where we're at now with cybersecurity, is where like health and wellness was 20 years ago with HR departments, who started giving out health and wellness benefits and programs to their workers to improve productivity. That was part of the sleep. There's a sleep piece of that I was discussing earlier. But cybersecurity is something similar where some people, many people, once they start getting into it and understanding this very scary, complex topic, they realize they can take it back home and they can keep their friends and their loved ones safe. And if people ever have like some kind of a security issue, then it happens at home and it also happens at work. Okay. So this is what happens when you're looking at focusing on success. If you focus on failure and just the failure rate, it's a failed approach. And by focusing on failure, you can actually see, look at the success rate, which is actually reporting rates. And you can see how it improves every month, and very dramatically too, over the first year of training. Let's skip forward a couple more slides here because I think I'm about out of time. How about one more? I want to stop with here actually. So this was really cool. So the reason why I wanted to stop on here, this is the newest technology that's out there. So this is a study that we just released, and our team has been developing these AI spear phishing agents since 2023. And this study's gotten a lot of pickup lately in the media, but in 2023, we did an experiment where we looked at the failure rates that were induced by a single prompt ChatGPT 3.5 experiment versus elite human red teams. And these are elite human red teams. They're really, these guys are really, these are Finnish cyber warriors. We're constantly kind of on top of this stuff because of our grumpy neighbor to the east. So these people really know what they do. They know how to create a really compelling phishing simulation. And so back in 2023, there was a clearly higher failure rate induced by the humans. That gap narrowed in 2024 in November, and then we kind of reached what we're calling our Skynet moment in March 2025, where AI completely autonomously outperformed human red teams using the spear phishing agents that we created. And now the reason why that's important is that we're not a nation-state backed group. We're just a bunch of, there's a bunch of smart people who did this. And so right now, some more of the research we've seen now is that most of the fish that bypass filters and get in our inboxes, they're still mostly written by humans. Mostly. It's really under 5% of fish that actually get into our inboxes are actually written by AI from what we can tell, which is way less than what you would think based on media reports. And maybe it's a bit more than that. Mimecast put it at about 12%, but it's a lot less than you would think it would be. But that's going to change sometime, very soon, more than likely. Eventually, there's this kind of technology out there kind of waiting around to be used where the threat landscape and the cybercrime as a service, all the different kits that are out there, they're going to be using AI spear phishing agents that will just have a much higher conversion rate than the typical phishing kits that are out there now, which are, they're typically not very good, the ones that get through. Some are amazing, the ones that are very advanced, but they're oftentimes the ones that get through is just pure volume. You send out millions if you get through, and then there's about, let's say, a 2 to a 20% click rate on those. But eventually that's going to get a lot more difficult to spot and report. But the reason why this is exciting is that the exact same technology can be used to defend people. So the exact same technology here that can be used to fish people, you can train people on it too. So then they get that fishing simulation, they click on the link, and then you have the platform say, hey, you caught a fish, congratulations, awesome, well done. Okay, that's it. And yeah, I think we can, and that's what performance looks like as a result. But I think I've run out of time here. So if anyone has a final question for me. Yes, please.
I'm curious to know how you were able to keep people awake for 7
Yeah. We played a lot of board games, watched TV. It was just, yeah, that was it. It wasn't. Yeah, you can imagine how crazy the conversations got sometimes after 72 hours of being awake. And the problem with that too, and there's a lot of problems with that too, is that there's the laboratory effect. When you have someone inside of a room for 72 hours, you can't get up and take a walk like you normally would. You're just stuck in this, kind of bed and sitting situation. But we didn't torture them though. It was not more than we had to. Okay. Well, thanks everybody.